So I want to share in brief and in not great detail some of the trajectory that I had once I started a practice of effortless meditation. So after I learned this practice called the Ascension, I had been meditating with much more difficult sort of concentration-based practices before. So once I started this, I had a bit of a honeymoon period. And in the honeymoon period, just everything was, it was, even if I was having a bad day, there was a kind of a sense for a couple weeks, that there was this kind of big suchness, this silence, this kind of vastness, inside, outside, in between, going this way and that way. That faded, as it does for many people. And then it was about 18 months. And the first, few months of that, I was at home in Lake Geneva, not in an ashram type of situation. I was meditating like 4 hours a day still, so that's kind of heavy. And then I was moved into an ashram, and so maybe it was like 4 to 6 hours for a while. And then it was mostly eyes open at a certain point when I was working to pay for a future 6-month retreat. And so for a while, it was just like, people would say like, go find the silence, or you're in the silence, or you're in the transcendent or the ascendant, as they would say. And I would get very frustrated because, I really didn't think I had a handle on what part of my internal experience they were referring to. It was just too cloudy. There was also too much stress being released from my nervous system far too quickly to have any kind of solid grasp at differentiating this thing from that thing, especially a very subtle thing. And so, it took a little bit of time of doing regular practice, of doing yoga twice a day, of drinking plenty of water, of eating a pretty good diet, of expressing the emotions that would be coming out of me if I needed to express them, and kind of getting help and not getting stuck in sorts of stuff. That there's a lot going on. And so it took some time, and then at a certain point, these moments of real clarity of what people were trying to guide me towards started coming up. These times when I realized, oh, that's what they're talking about. That the same as every peak experience I'd ever experienced up to that point in my life, the same thing that I knew intimately without knowing that I knew it intimately as a child. The same thing that had been there in my near-death experience and in the wake of my near-death experience. The core of all of those different experiences was this same big vastness, this same place where subject and object smushed together, the same place where you could say awareness became aware of itself. For me, those words actually, none of those words actually really worked that well when people would say them to me beforehand. They just confused me some more. Only someone would say, "Oh, that place where you used to hang out and daydream when you were 5," but maybe that would have done it, maybe not. I think it's one of those state-specific memory things. Anyways, I would start to find myself in this silence, and in this this space that was already awake, that already existed, that was just sitting there, waiting for some fictitious me to relax sufficiently to fall into it and be aware. And so that became an increasingly frequent space for me to visit. And as time went on, the visits became deeper, more nuanced. It's as if I started to pick up more qualities of this space that in a sense has no qualities, but another space reveals different qualities. That's why we have the wonderful word Sat Chit Ananda. It's a name for something that can't be named. And within that name are 3 qualities for something that has no qualities. And yet the human nervous system, the vehicle through which we are experiencing this space, is the thing that I would say produces those subtle qualities. Sat being sort of eternity. How does that translate? Well, for me, in very simple terms, that translated to the sense of this wonderful heaviness, as if you are in the most therapeutic weighted blanket that's ever been conceived. That kind of heaviness. Chit was like being in that space in which it's brighter than bright. Ananda, well, bliss, and bliss is something that you can sort of imagine through taking whatever was the most pleasurable experience and timesing it by 5, but that doesn't quite do it. It's not necessarily a difference in magnitude, but it's slight difference in kind. And so, Satchidananda. Anyhow, this went on for a while. And at a certain point, especially during my meditation teacher training, that allowed me to really kind of anchor in to that space and also start to experience the subtle differences between silence and maybe very, very pleasurable, subtle strata of consciousness that are sitting right on top of Samadhi, silence. And so that started to stick around and be present, even when I was talking or eating or laughing or thinking even. Thought is not, the experience of thought is not mutually exclusive to Samadhi. And that was just a wonderful, wonderful, joyful phase of having this, this walking around as if I'm sitting in the bottom of a well, and the whole world is turning around and through my body. The sense of, well, what do I mean by me? And that period really started to, take on some very interesting, produce some very interesting answers. Where would I stick the me? To what part of that whole spectrum? And if I was at that time the most honest, that the me was this big, vast witness. And that was there. And then at a certain point, kind of along with that, contemporaneously, it wasn't so linear, and I don't think these things are linear for most people. Silence started to turn up in people, in objects, in trees and flowers, in convection ovens. There was a sense that the world wasn't just some sort of kind of static, bullshit other. Wasn't just dead matter. The world became enchanted, or the world became infused with love. If we could give a name for the nameless, it would be God or love. Those are wonderful words for that, or goddess, or whatever we want to choose. And so there started to be this wonderful fullness. And it was as if there was even an interaction, or a sense that there was an interaction happening of this witness, this big reservoir that stretched back and back and back, would be interacting with the silence in the wood on the table, or the presence in an onion, the presence in a bunch of mushrooms in the knife as I'm making Hungarian mushroom soup. All of that, the presence in a bag of dirt. We could go on forever. It's basically the plot structure of green eggs and ham, I would say. And at a certain point, another bottom opened up. There was even a deeper place to drop, and that deeper place to drop was this kind of, not even a woo-woo. A lot of that stuff we could say was very woo-woo, and I certainly experienced it in a very woo-woo way, I have to say. One doesn't have to have all this celestial light as part of one's experience for them to be experiencing the fruits of samyama, for instance. And so what started to happen is I was noticing there's no difference. Not from up here, more from, you can't see it, but kind of down in my belly. There was a sense of, there's no difference between this onion and this body and the transcendent that seems to be in all of these things. There's no difference. How strange, how wonderful. And I say strange, but in a way it wasn't particularly strange. It was a sense of, my God, this was This was with me when I was a baby in the crib in a completely unrecognized way. This sense of non-local connection, of like a peace, a deep peace that's not only found in some deep space, I don't know, behind my head or whatever, behind my body, but this peace that was kind of everywhere. Kind of this endless peace that was filling everything up. And so that's a little window into how that happened in my life, or at least how things were ordered. Yeah. So and what to take from that's practical. Well, I'd say find a meditation that really works for you, or in other words, find a practice that is fundamentally relaxing your nervous system and bringing you into a state of samadhi consistently. Now, if you're starting from scratch and there's like a bag of cats in your head, don't worry if it takes more than a few months, because I'm sorry, often it does. Things want to take a year or two or whatever. It's not like fast food here. The enlightenment process or whatever you want to call it. It's something that in some ways you don't have that much control over, but you do. So if you find a practice that works very well, just keep doing it. Keep doing it, doing it. If you're really serious and you're really on fire for it, maybe find a way to be extremely one-pointed with it for a while. Structure your life in such a way that you're having as much time and energy being put into that as possible. And then, just do it in almost a stupid way sometimes, and let nature unfold. It is trying to unfold. That's the wonderful thing is that it's easier for us to exist and live in a relaxed space in which we're becoming more and more infused with this big vastness, this silence, this whatever you want to call it, than it is when we're trying to run from it, or we're trying to, live through all these control mechanisms and psychological maladaptations. That takes a lot of energy, and so if you start to unwind, there is a positive feedback loop that's in there. There is your mind and even the separate selfing structure. They are not so recalcitrant that they're just going to hold on to something stupid forever. No, actually, that all these structures, and ego included, doesn't just it's not a one-trick pony. It doesn't just clench and defend. It also learns to let go. Because at the core, it's like, oh, hey, wow, I like that bliss, So, go for it. That's enough for today. Thank you very much.